Today we're going to be talking about the types of common functions that you will encounter in algebra. So the first type of function is called a linear function. So the function of x is equals to m times x plus b. The domain of this function is x, and x is a real number. For the range y is a real number. So basically, for a linear fraction, each number that you will find is going to be a real number. Or, yeah. Next is the constant function. So the function of x is equals to b. The domain is the x is a real number, and the range for y, the range for this function is y equals b. So basically, the function is a real number, but this part is equals to y. Next is this is called the identity function. So the function of x is equals to x. Now for this one, it's it's really simple. X is still a real number, and I I'm assuming that y is equals to x for this one. Yeah. Next is the square function. The square function is the function of x is equals to x squared. So the domain of this function is x, and x is a real number. The range is y, and y is greater than or equal to 0. This function is a function that you might encounter a lot. It's called the quadratic function. A quadratic function is a function of the form function of x is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0. So the domain of this function is x. X is a real number. For the range, one of these two might you have to solve with one of these two. If a is greater than 0, then y is greater than or equal to 4ac minus b squared divided by 4a in fraction form. Or if a is less than 0, y is less than or equal to 4ac minus b squared divided by 4a in fraction form. Now for the cubic function, the function of x is equals to x cubed. The domain of this function is x, and x is a real number. The range is y is a real number. Next is the square root function. The square root function is the function of x is equals to the square root of x. The domain should be x, and x is greater than 0, and for the range is basically the same thing but for y. In general, square root function is of the form the function of x is equals to the square root, guessing this one is also function of x, where x is a polynomial. So that's that. Now, the reciprocal function. The function of x is equals to 1 divided by x. This is in fraction form. So the domain of this function is x, and x is not equals to 0. and it's the same thing for the range, but it's y instead of x. Next is the absolute value function. The This function is the function of x is equals to the absolute value of x. So the domain is x is a real number. The range is y is greater than or equal to 0. This is the rational function. A rational function of the form function of x is equals to the function g function of x, and basically just the same thing on the bottom, where the this one and this one are polynomials. The domain consists of all numbers except those that will make the denominator hx equals to 0. To determine the range, replace function of x by y, solve for x in terms of y, and then find the restrictions. Thank you for listening. Oh, wait. There's still some examples that I want to show you. We have to solve for each of these functions. We have to find the domain and range for each of them. So for letter A, function of x is equals to 3x plus 4. Since the given function is linear, the domain is x is any real number, and the range is y is any real number. For letter B, function of x is equals to 5x squared plus 2. The function is quadratic with a is equals to 5, b equals to 0, and c equals 2. Therefore, the domain of this function is x is any real number. Since a is greater than 0, then y is greater than or equal to 2. The range is y is greater than or equal to 2. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for listening.